ముందుగా ప్రియమైన విద్యార్థులకు మరియు వారి తల్లిదండ్రులకు నమస్కారం. నా పేరు కె వెంకన్న జూనియర్ కాలేజ్ చైర్మన్. నేను ఈ రోజు 10th క్లాస్ విద్యార్థులను దృష్టిలో పెట్టుకొని మాట్లాడడం జరుగుతుంది. అది ఏమిటనగా, మనందరికీ తెలుసు, గత 2 సంవత్సరాలుగా కరోనా కారణంగా విద్యార్థులు ఎటువంటి పరీక్షలు రాయకుండానే పై తరగతులు పంపడం జరుగుతుంది. ఫలితంగా ఐఐటి జేఈఈ మరియు నీట్ లాంటి జాతీయ స్థాయి పరీక్షలను సాధించడం కష్టతరం అవుతుంది. దీనిని అధిగమించడానికి మరియు 10వ తరగతి పరీక్షలో అత్యధిక మార్కులు సాధించడానికి నేను మీ ముందుకు కె వెంకన్న జూనియర్ కాలేజ్ ప్లాట్ఫామ్ ద్వారా అనుభవజ్ఞులైన అధ్యాపకులచే ఉచిత వీడియో క్లాసులు, హ్యాండ్ రిటన్ నోట్స్ మరియు గత ప్రశ్నపత్రాల సమాధానాల విశ్లేషణ ఇవ్వబడును. కాబట్టి నేను విద్యార్థులకు చెప్పదలుచుకున్నది ఏంటంటే, ఈ ఉచిత వీడియో క్లాసులను మరియు హ్యాండ్ రిటన్ నోట్స్లను క్లాస్ రూమ్ లో కూర్చొని చదువుకున్నంత సీరియస్ చదువుకోవాలను. ఇంకొకటి ఏమిటనగా, ఈ యొక్క క్లాసులు విన్న వెంటనే అర్థం చేసుకొని ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయవలను. ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయడం అంటే కేవలం చదవడం కాదు, పేపర్ మీద రాయవలను. అలాగైతే గుర్తుండిపోతుంది. దీంతో పాటు మీ యొక్క నాలెడ్జ్ ని పరీక్షించుకున్న కొరకు త్వరలో ప్రీ ఫైనల్ పరీక్షలు కూడా నిర్వహించబడు. ఈ యొక్క అవకాశాన్ని సద్వినియోగం చేసుకోవాలని 10th చదివే విద్యార్థులకు విజ్ఞప్తి చేస్తున్నాను.
Okay, as we all understood the different sectors of the economy, the primary, the secondary and the tertiary, I have a small exercise for you all now, for you to understand it even better, because this tabular form, there is always a probability that you might get even in the exam, board exam for class social studies as well for class 10. Okay, so it's a small exercise for you to understand, because you all understood the definition of a primary sector. Primary sector is nothing but, again I am telling you children, I am giving a crystal clear, I am trying to remind you what is primary sector, which falls in the domain of the nature, which comes under all the domain of the nature, it is called as a primary sector. And now the secondary sector, all the industries, the large scale, the small scale and the cottage industries, which fall, all these come under the secondary sector. And now what is the tertiary sector? There is one more name for tertiary sector. What is that? Right, service sector. So all the services, when somebody is giving you some service, which sector does this fall on? It falls on tertiary sector. Now a small exercise for you all. See, this is some amount of occupations and the classifications are given. Now don't look into this classification. Look at me, look at the occupation, try to give a guess. The answers are already here, don't worry. But give some work to the brain, give a thought about it. So the occupation is tailor. Which sector does he come across? What is he doing? He is stitching the cloths for us. Where does the tailor sit? He sits in your home or my home? No, he sits in a small place, a small room. So obviously, which sector does he come across? He has a small industry. So which will this come across under? Secondary sector. It's a small cottage industry, small scale industry, whatever it is. He might be hiring 3 to 4 persons, having some sophisticated machines and cutting the garments and giving the proper shape of all the cloths and getting them into proper garments and all. So obviously the tailor falls under the secondary sector. Now the basket weaver. There is a small person, you get out to the market, you get into the shops and all, you see the baskets, people will be doing some handicraft baskets. So obviously all these baskets weaving also falls under which sector? It also falls under secondary sector. Why? Because it's a small scale industry, or even it might be cottage industry to be precisely. So obviously basket weaver also falls under secondary sector only. Now coming back to the flower cultivator. What is flower cultivator? Before starting this tabular form, what did I say? What did I remind you all? Primary sector is always where nature plays a dominant role. So obviously flower cultivation comes under which part? It comes under the natural part. So obviously it falls under the primary sector. It does not get into agriculture, but it falls under the primary sector, because flower cultivation is also nothing but under the domain of the nature. Now coming back to the milk vendor. What is milk vendor doing? He gets the milk from his buffaloes and cows and fills them in the vans and get to our homes and give us the milk. Right? So what is milk vendor doing? He is doing service to us. If milk vendor is doing us some service. Obviously where does the services fall under? What is service sector called as? Right, tertiary sector. So the milk vendor, it falls under the territory sector. Now the priest means what? It might be a priest, or it might be a father in the church, or it might be a Maulvi Sahib in the masjid, anybody that might be, to any religion. So what are they doing? They are preaching the good things of the religion and trying to take the society into a proper path. So what are they doing? All of the priest or the father or the Maulvi, anybody, so doing some service to the society. And so what is service? Falls under which sector? Very true, students, service sector. Okay. And now coming back, what does this potter do? Potter is also again the same thing. No? It's a cottage industry. It might be having a small place, having a heap of mud, having couple of people under him, and every one of them making the pots and all these things. So obviously, what does this potter fall under? He also falls under the secondary sector. Now a gardener, what does he do? Again, gardener, going close to the nature. So obviously anybody going close to the nature. Which sector we come across? Very true. It's nothing, none other than the primary sector. When you're coming across the money lender, which sector? Tell me this money lender. Don't see this answer. Tell me on your own. What is money lender? Don't look into that answer. What is money lender? What does he do? He gives money to people. Yes or no? Which sector that is came across? Obviously it comes across. Yes, any guesses? Very true. Very good, students. You all are doing great. You are looking at the proper track. Money lender also comes across which sector? Very true. The answer is the territory sector. I think this has been a tremendous and a very good exercise for all of you. Now you understand very better in a proper way what is primary sector, what is secondary sector, and what is territory sector. You know, a crystal clear. After this homework, after this tabular form, I think tomorrow anybody might ask you, for your exercise, what will you do? Don't restrict yourself only to the textbook when you go out of your home, when you go out of the market, when you're roaming on the roads. When you see a flower vendor, or when you see somebody putting small stalls as a coconut, and when you go to a temple, when you go to the churches, any place, you'll see people putting some items and sitting there. You think across, which sector does this man fall across? Then obviously you're giving your work to your brain. This is how we are supposed to read. Don't restrict yourself, open your books and sit before, why should I get across? No, it's not like that. Whenever social studies is always the study of the society where you live in, connect yourself every small way. So I think this exercise, don't restrict only to this exercise. When you go out, keep doing this exercise till your exams aren't done. Believe me, students, you will not forget these sectors even after the exams, because you need, as you keep growing, we need to understand our own economy. So for understanding the economy better, we need to be very well acquainted with these three sectors. What are those? Primary, right? Second one is the secondary, and the third one is the territory. How do you remember them? Always the primary sections. So the primary is the first one. Second, the secondary sector. Territory is the T, and the third number is also third also starts with T, right? So the territory sector is the third sector. So these three are the backbones, important sectors of an economy. Based on these things only, where all the services fall across, you get your organized sector and you get your unorganized sector. Organized sector is nothing but again the government, all the organizations which fall under the government domain, you call them as organized sector. Who are away out of the government domain, you call them as unorganized sector. And we already read all the differences, right? So just remember, then just go through the revision. I think we covered almost 70% of the lesson, production and employment, how things are being produced and how is employment being generated. To create something, to do something is nothing but production. For doing that, somebody is sitting and doing the work constantly, that is called as employment. Very clear. Now, the most important topic, and one of the important topic is gross domestic product. We will discuss that topic also as gross domestic product. Once you understand all these things, based on all these things only, the output of all the services and the monetary issues is only nothing but gross domestic product. So you know how do we generate our services, you know how do we generate the money from the services. So obviously we can figure out how do we get our GDP, right?
Hello students, my name is Vishal Kumar Sharma and I did my BTech from IIT Kanpur. Right now I am associated with K. Venkana classes, and at K. Venkana classes we are bringing your IIT top Delhi faculties. I am an HOD of mathematics at K. Venkana classes. Okay. Now, if you are choosing MPC, then you will have a chance to be taught under top Delhi faculties. If you are choosing BIPC as your subject, then you will have not only IIT faculties as well as a proper doctor teaching you. Similarly, we have if you are choosing MEC and CEC, so after second year for your CACPT exam, we have a very expert faculty specializing in CACPT. So what are you waiting for? Come and join KVC.
Now let's focus on gross domestic product, that is GDP, the most wanted topic which every student want to understand. This generally people only economists understand. There is nothing like that. GDP is a very simplified topic if you really understand properly. For us to understand GDP is very important, as we understood already how GDP is being calculated. As I said in my previous classes, GDP is calculated. What is GDP? GDP is nothing but the monetary value of all the finished goods and services. From where do we get all this monetary value of finished goods and services? From the three sectors, from the primary sector, the secondary sector and the tertiary sector, we just derived that. Okay. So, from all these things we already have a glimpse and we all have a total idea of all those sectors. Now, let us understand, based on all those sectors, how do we derive this gross domestic product? Somebody asked you, there is a single 1 mark question, define gross domestic product. What is GDP? So, just do not get confused. Simple thing, GDP is nothing but gross domestic product. Monetary value of all the finished goods and services produced in an year, in an annual year, is called as gross domestic product. And what is annual year? Academic year starts from June and ends again in the April. So, what is which year? How do we calculate this annual value of all the monetary goods and stuff? There is called as a financial year. I repeat, there is called as financial year. What is financial year? I will tell you. What is financial year? The financial year starts from April 1st and ends by March 31st. So, remember that it starts by April 1st to March 31st. So, this is called as the financial year. As we have the academic year in the schools, right, it starts with the June 9th, the academic year starts for us. June 12th, the schools do open as per the Telangana state government, and the last working day is in the till end first or second week of the April. Every year it keeps on changing. So, this is how we have an academic year for the schools. As we have even a financial year, in the particular this particular financial year, what are the goods and the services produced in all the sectors, in all the 3 sectors of the economy, we take the final monetary value of all the finished goods and services produced in the financial year. You calculate a figure you got, you came across as the gross domestic product. And now, understanding gross domestic product even in depth, there are certain things you will have to consider, like GDP is calculated on annual basis. What is annual basis? I said financial year, right? And the next thing is, it includes all of the public and private consumption, government outlays, investments, exports and less imports. So, obviously, as we discussed, organized and unorganized sector also, right, students? So, obviously, all the 3 sectors of the economy, organized sector and unorganized sector, all the output of the services and the goods produced as well as in unorganized, organized, all of them put together, we calculate in the annual year and we get across the gross domestic product. And what is, in the short form, if you want to go across, what is GDP? GDP is nothing but, C is here consumption, means the goods which are being produced, you consume them. The goods which are being produced, you consume them. So, the consumption plus, again see here, the government outlays plus the investments plus the exports and as well as the imports. All the value, again I am telling, all the monetary. What do you mean by monetary value? Money. In economics, what do we call as money? We call it as the monetary issue or even the capital. What do you mean by capital? Delhi is the capital of India, Hyderabad is the capital of Telangana. No, that capital is, the spelling is different, but the meaning changes in the economics. Monetary issues and capital means we are talking about the money matters, the financial matters. So obviously, so all the monetary value of all the finished goods and services produced in the financial year, you get across here gross domestic product. You got it very clear. And points which are to be very important considering and estimating your gross domestic product, what are they? Total production of goods and services from the three sectors. As I said you right now explanation, you will have to, you should not leave any sector. Like the primary sector you pick up because you have a the percentage of the input what we get in primary sector is more, so we will take primary sector, take the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. No, it's not like that. We will have to take all the goods and services, all the three sectors of the economy mandatorily, compulsorily, then only you will be able to assess the gross domestic product of your country, of your financial year. And we include only the value of the final goods and services which are produced from the three sectors. The final output, so in every production of any item you have stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3, but we will not consider the monetary issue in the stage 1. We consider the monetary issue of the final output of a good and take all the services and the goods produced together, the monetary value, the weightage, the financial aspect, we consider them and calculate our gross domestic product. Again, let me see. Again, I'm asking, I'm just giving you a crystal clear again so that doesn't get confused. So what is GDP? GDP is nothing but gross domestic product. And how is it being calculated? Half an year, 3 months? No, you take an annual year. And what is that annual year in when calculating gross domestic product? You always need to remember that we have a financial year. Unlike academic years, academic calendars, we have a financial year which starts from April 1st and ends by March 31st. And in between this period, all the output of all the produced goods and services in how many sectors? In all the three sectors. We discussed with all the three sectors of the economy, right? So all the three sectors of the economy, we'll have to take all of them. Ante manamu ప్రీవియస్ క్లాస్ చదువుకున్నట్టు ఎకానమీలో 3 సెక్టర్స్లో నుంచి వచ్చిన ఉత్పత్తులు వాటి యొక్క ఆర్థిక విలువల్ని కూడా మూడిటి నుంచి తీసుకుని మనము ఒక్క ఫైనాన్షియల్ ఇయర్ ఆర్థిక సంవత్సరంలో ఏప్రిల్ 1వ తారీఖు నుంచి మార్చి 31వ తారీఖు వరకు అయ్యే అన్నిటినీ కలిపి చేస్తే వచ్చే విలువే మనకి గ్రాస్ డొమెస్టిక్ ప్రోడక్ట్. అది చేసుకునేటప్పుడు వెన్ డూయింగ్ దాట్ మనం కొన్ని పాయింట్స్ ఖచ్చితంగా గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాలి. యాజ్ వెన్ యూ గో అండ్ సిట్ ఇన్ టు యువర్ ఎగ్జామ్, గోయింగ్ టు అన్ ఎగ్జామ్, యూ టేక్ ఏ హాల్ టికెట్ కంపల్సరీగా తీసుకెళ్తారా? ఇఫ్ వితౌట్ ఏ హాల్ టికెట్ యూ థింక్ ఎనీబడి విల్ పర్మిట్? Nobody will permit. So obviously going, you'll have to take a hall ticket, sit, take your own things. As such, you have a norms and regulations which you'll have to follow to get the accurate figure of the GDP. ఒక్క మనిషిది కన్సిడర్ చేయట్లేదు కదా మనం. వీఆర్ నాట్ కన్సిడరింగ్ అ సింగిల్ పర్సన్ ఆర్ అ సింగిల్ ఫ్యామిలీ ఆర్ అ సిటీ. ఆర్ వి? నో, నాట్ అట్ ఆల్. వీ కన్సిడరింగ్ ద GDP of whole of the country. Such a vast population, so many goods and services produced in an academic year, such a vast country. So obviously we'll have to be very particular, very minute things we'll have to consider to attain the proper gross domestic product of a country. So what are the points to be remembered? These two are the points to be considered very importantly when you're taking consideration into your gross domestic product. What are they? Total production of goods produced, goods and services from all the three sectors. And lastly, we include only, we are saying a ప్రొడక్షన్ అయిపోయిన వెంటనే ప్రొడక్షన్తో ఆగకుండా ప్రొడక్షన్ చేసిన దానిలో నుంచి వచ్చే ఫైనల్ వాల్యూ ఆఫ్ ద గూడ్స్ను తీసుకోమని చెప్తున్నారు. ప్రొడక్షన్ 3 సెక్టర్స్ నుంచి వచ్చింది. ప్రొడక్షన్ తీసుకొని వాటి నుంచి వచ్చిన ఫైనల్ వాల్యూ ఆఫ్ ద గూడ్స్ సర్వీసెస్కి ఈ 3 సెక్టర్స్ నుంచి తీసుకుని వచ్చిన వాటి నుంచి మనం తీసుకునే యొక్క విలువనే, మనం తీసుకునే యొక్క ఆర్థిక స్తోమత తీసుకోగలిగేది గ్రాస్ డొమెస్టిక్ ప్రోడక్ట్. సో ఆబ్వియస్లీ ఇది మర్చిపోకుండా మనం గ్రాస్ డొమెస్టిక్ ప్రోడక్ట్ ఖచ్చితంగా గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాల్సిన పాయింట్ ఇది మనకి. ఓకే, ఈ గ్రాస్ డొమెస్టిక్ ప్రోడక్ట్ మనకు అర్థమవటానికి మనము ఐ హ్యావ్ ఏ వండర్ఫుల్ గ్రాఫ్ which is given in your textbook, page number, I think 31 is the page number. You have this graph, and for you to understand this graph, I'll get you the graph also now. Just give me a minute. I'm just pulling my graph across and seeing the graph. You can understand even things better. How do we get? ప్రతి ఏడాది years.